Have you ever felt like you're stuck on a hamster wheel? Running and running, but never really getting anywhere? That was Stella's life. Every morning, her alarm would blare at 6 a.m., a quick, tasteless breakfast, a crowded commute, and then 8, sometimes 10, hours staring at a computer screen. Her job wasn't terrible, but it wasn't her passion either. It was just a job, a means to pay the bills. Evenings were a blur of chores, a microwave dinner, and maybe an hour of mindless scrolling on her phone before she collapsed into bed, just to do it all over again the next day. Weekends? They were for catching up on sleep, running errands, and dreading Monday morning. Stella felt trapped. The rat race, they called it. A constant, exhausting chase for something she wasn't even sure she wanted. She saw her colleagues, many older than her, doing the exact same thing for decades. The thought terrified her. Was this all there is to life? A cycle of work, sleep, and repeat until retirement? This gnawing question was the first step on her journey to escape. She knew something had to change. One rainy Tuesday, sitting in her cubicle, Stella had a moment of clarity. She looked at the spreadsheets on her screen, the flickering numbers that represented someone else's profits, and felt a profound sense of disconnection. Who was she doing this for? What was she building? It certainly wasn't her own dream. That evening, instead of scrolling through social media, she took out a dusty old notebook. At the top of the page, she wrote, "What do I actually want?" It was a surprisingly difficult question. The rat race had a way of silencing her own desires, replacing them with societal expectations. A stable job, a nice car, a bigger apartment. She started small. She remembered how much she loved to bake as a teenager, the joy of creating something delicious with her own hands. She recalled her fascination with graphic design, spending hours creating posters for school events. Slowly, a picture began to form, not of a specific job, but of a life. A life with more creativity, more autonomy, and more meaning. A life where her work felt like an extension of herself, not a cage. This wasn't about hating her job. It was about loving her life more. And for the first time in a long time, Stella felt a flicker of hope. She wasn't escaping from something, she was building towards something. Stella knew that dreaming wasn't enough. She needed a plan. A realistic, step-by-step plan. Quitting her job impulsively wasn't an option. She had rent to pay and responsibilities to uphold. So she started with her finances. For 1 month, she tracked every single penny she spent. The daily expensive coffees, the impulse online purchases, the subscription services she barely used. The results were eye-opening. She realized she could easily save a few $100s each month without making huge sacrifices. This became her freedom fund. It wasn't about getting rich. It was about creating a safety net, a buffer that would give her options and reduce her fear of the unknown. Next, she looked at her time. She was spending nearly 2 hours a day on her phone, passively consuming content. She decided to reclaim that time. Instead of scrolling, she enrolled in an online graphic design course. It was just 30 minutes a day, right after dinner. It wasn't a massive commitment, but it was consistent. Some days she was tired and unmotivated, but she pushed through, reminding herself of her goal. She started turning small ideas into tangible skills. This small shift in her daily routine was monumental. She was no longer just a passive consumer. She was an active creator of her own future. As the weeks turned into months, Stella's life began to quietly transform. Her freedom fund was growing, giving her a sense of security she hadn't felt before. Her design skills were improving. She started a portfolio, initially with practice projects from her course. Then she took a leap of faith. She reached out to a small local charity and offered to design a flyer for their upcoming event for free. They were thrilled. Seeing her design printed and distributed around her neighborhood was an incredible feeling. It was real. It was hers. This small success gave her the confidence to seek out paid work. She joined a freelance platform and started bidding on small projects. A logo for a local baker, a social media post for a startup. Her first payment was only $50, but it felt more valuable than a week's salary from her day job. It was proof. Proof that she could make money on her own terms, using a skill she was passionate about. She wasn't trying to replace her full-time income overnight. Instead, she was building a side hustle bridge. This bridge was her pathway from the rat race to a life of her own design, built one plank at a time. The transition wasn't a straight line. There were days of self-doubt. Some clients were difficult. Some projects fell through. There were times when Stella felt overwhelmed, juggling her demanding day job with her growing freelance work. She felt tired and wondered if it was all worth it. During these moments, she would look back at her notebook, at that first page where she wrote down what she wanted. She reminded herself of the feeling of being trapped on that hamster wheel. What kept her going was her mindset shift. She stopped seeing her day job as a prison and started seeing it as an investor. Her stable salary was funding her escape. It was paying for her courses, supporting her while she built her client base, and contributing to her freedom fund. This change in perspective was powerful. It removed the resentment and replaced it with a strategic purpose. Every day she went to the office, she knew she was one step closer to her goal. She also learned the importance of community. She joined online forums for freelance designers, connecting with people on a similar journey. They shared tips, offered encouragement, and celebrated each other's wins. She was no longer alone. After about 18 months, Stella reached a tipping point. Her freelance income was consistently matching about half of her salary from her day job. Her freedom fund had grown to cover 6 months of her essential living expenses. The fear was still there, but it was overshadowed by excitement. She walked into her manager's office, her heart pounding, and handed in her resignation. It was one of the scariest and most liberating moments of her life. Escaping the rat race wasn't a single dramatic event. It was the culmination of hundreds of small, consistent decisions. It was choosing to save $10 instead of buying another coffee. It was choosing to spend 30 minutes learning a new skill instead of scrolling on her phone. It was choosing to face her fears and send that proposal to a potential client. Today, Stella's life looks completely different. She works from her cozy home office, setting her own hours. Some days she works intensely on a project she loves. Other days she takes the afternoon off to go for a walk in the park. She earns less than she did at her corporate job, but her quality of life has skyrocketed. She has control over her time, her work, and her future. She is no longer running on a wheel. She is paving her own path. Stella's story isn't about everyone needing to become a freelance designer. It's a story about empowerment. It's about realizing that you have more control than you think. Your escape plan might look different. Maybe it's starting a small business, changing careers, negotiating for remote work, or simply redesigning your current life to be more intentional and fulfilling. The key is to start small. Figure out what you truly want. Make a realistic financial plan. Start building skills in your spare time. Create a bridge, not a cliff. The journey to escape the rat race isn't about a dramatic leap, but a series of intentional steps. It begins with the decision that you deserve a life that you design, not one that you just endure. If you feel stuck just like Stella did, take out a piece of paper tonight. Ask yourself that one simple, powerful question. What do I actually want? That's where the escape begins. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. See you in the next video.